Hello and welcome to DOM manipulation. So the prerequisites for this video, you should already have Visual Studio Code installed. You should know how to open a web browser on your computer, and you should also know how to create a directory on your computer and put files in it. If you don't know how to do these things, then please follow the resources that we have in the lesson for prereqs so that you can get up to speed on these skills. The learning objectives for this video, so students will be able to create and connect an HTML page with a JavaScript page and then use JavaScript to alter the page. So this is our concept. We are going to be creating a store called Paco, which is Pan-African Kitchen Online. And in order to do that, we need to have some interactivity on the page. We're just going to be using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But for this particular lesson, the focus of this lesson is that you should be able to create the 3 pages, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, connect those 3 pages together so that they're all working together. Then you should be able to use document.getElementById or document.querySelector to select elements on the page, and then use inner HTML property to modify an element in the DOM. So this is a very simple lesson that we have here of things that you should be able to do when everything is connected. So let's go ahead and get started. Inside of Visual Studio Code, I'm inside of a folder here called DOM. I can click on this little icon here to create a new file. So I want to create index.html as my first file. And inside of Visual Studio Code comes with an embedded program called Emmet, where you basically can type some things and then there's code completion that will complete what you want to do. So if you do HTML:5 and you hit tab, then it basically creates a basic HTML document for you. So we'll go ahead in here and fill in here in the document. This will be, I guess we can just call this Paco because that's the name of our store. And we want to have a div, so we'll just create a div here. And this will, you have an ID. So div ID equals title. Right, so we have a basic HTML page now. We want to connect JavaScript to the HTML page. So we're going to go ahead here and create a JavaScript file, and we'll just call this script.js. And in our page here, we're going to go ahead and embed this. So we, inside of the head of our document, we want to do a script tag. And if you do script and then tab, it creates it for you with the beginning and closing tag. And we can just do source equals script.js. Now inside of the script.js, we can do a console.log. Hello, I am here, just to make sure that everything is connected. So now Visual Studio Code also comes with what's called an integrated terminal. If you hit Control and then tilde, the tilde is this key that looks like this, right, on your keyboard. So if you hit the Control, hold it down, and then hit tilde, you get your integrated terminal. So here I can type in a command. I'll just do open index.html. So it says that the file does not exist, probably because I'm in the wrong directory. So if I do ls, I can see everything. And I see here now, we are going to be having you inside of Windows machine. You're going to be using a terminal called Powershell. So inside of Powershell, if you open PowerShell and you navigate to the directory there where this folder is, you can see this. Now, you don't have to use the integrated terminal. We're just showing you how to do it here through the integrated terminal. If you're confused about the integrated terminal, we'll put some resources in the bottom of this lesson to help you with that, and we'll show you how to open it manually. But for now, we're going to cd into the DOM folder, and then we're going to do open index.html. And then inside of Chrome, we want to go and look at our developer tools. Inside of Chrome, what you need to do, if you are on Windows, you see here, it is Control-Shift-J. Control-Shift-J on Windows, and it's Option-Command-J on a Mac. That's how you get the window open in your Chrome developer tools. You have to be inside of the Chrome browser, but that's how you do it. So on Windows, again, it is Control-Shift-J, and on a Mac, it's Option-Command-J. And then we see our terminal that says, hello, I am here. So this means that our index.html page is working with our JavaScript. So these two are connected. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is that we want to, this title, we want to make the title to have some content in it. Now, if you're confused here or you are not sure how the integrated terminal works and that didn't really work for you, inside of Windows or Mac, wherever you are, you can always navigate to the file that you had. So mine is in Documents, and then Projects. I have it in HTLC and inside of Demo, and then DOM, and then my index.html. You can just double click on that file and you get it. And then you could Option-Command-J on a Mac or Option-Control-J on Windows, and you'll see your console. The console is where JavaScript can speak to you. So hello, I am here. That is all there. Okay. So what we want to do, however, is that we want to basically do something called DOM manipulation. So inside of, when you look inside of when you're working with HTML and JavaScript, the DOM stands for Document Object Model. This basically is an API. It's an application programming interface. The API is a way of speaking to another program. So JavaScript needs a way to speak to an HTML page. Your HTML page has a structure that's like a tree. You have a body, and the first child of the body here is a div. We could have another child here, an unordered list. And then here, we've got a list item. So this list item is a child of the UL, unordered list. And the unordered list is a child of the body. And ultimately, the body is a child of this HTML tag. So there's a hierarchy here. This is the DOM. The DOM is basically a big tree, like with a bunch of branches. And all of these elements in here have ways that we can access them and manipulate them with JavaScript. This is what we call DOM manipulation. So what we can do is the API gives certain methods to JavaScript, where JavaScript can then speak to HTML and find things inside of the HTML document. You can create things, you can change things, you can do everything with JavaScript to control the index page. Right now, there's nothing on this page. When I refresh it, you see nothing inside the actual page, except there's a LI list item. You see we have a dot here that's part of the LI. So each LI has its own, right? But if we delete the unordered list, we've got a div with an ID of title, and there's nothing inside of that div. So what we want to do is we want to find this div with an ID of title, and we want to put some text in it that says the name of the restaurant, which is just Paco. We could just type it in here, Paco. But instead of doing that, we're going to use JavaScript to put those words there. So inside of our script.js, we'll take out the console log. We're going to declare a variable. Our, let's call it restaurant name equals document.getElementById. And then we call this here the title. So what does this do? we're declaring a variable called restaurant name, and then we're using a DOM method called getElementById that will find an element that has an ID of title. In HTML, when you have an ID, that basically is giving this a unique, an ID can only be used once in a document. It is a unique identifier. So this is an ID of title. This will basically go through the DOM, find something that has an ID that's called title, and then return the value, the DOM element that has that. So what we're getting here is a DOM element. It's an element. It doesn't require. It doesn't correspond to what's in the element. It corresponds to the actual element itself. So now that we have the restaurant name, we can grab that. We can say restaurant name dot inner HTML equals, and then we can, as a string, give it some HTML. We can say h1, and then we can say Paco. So now, when we refresh this, okay, so we ran into an issue that is very important to think about when it comes to HTML pages. When this page loads, everything loads in here sequentially, every single line. The HTML, the head, here we have a script, and then we have script.js. It loads the JavaScript, and then so JavaScript immediately starts to do its job. It's looking for an element called title, that's an ID, and then it's putting in inner HTML, that's setting the inner HTML to what we have here. But it's not working. This is one of the reasons why it's good to keep your terminal open, because you can see, to keep your console open rather, because you can see that you've got an error here. When we try to load this, it says, cannot set property inner HTML of null. And it gives you the line where that error happens. Script.js line 5, and that's happening right here in our script.js on line 5. Because it went ahead and tried to get a restaurant name, and then it couldn't find it. The reason for that is that by the time you hit line 8, line 10, 11, and 12 has not fully loaded. So it's trying to, JavaScript is very fast. It's trying to find lines 10, 11, and 12, and it's nowhere to be found because this loaded before this loaded. So how do you solve that problem? What you solve that problem by is a couple of things. The first thing you could do is you could just take this and you can move this line all the way down to the end of the body, so that after this is all loaded, then you see it loads this first, and then it loads the script. So now if I reload the page, then you see Paco here. So that's one way to do it. You can put this all the way at the bottom of the document. You can even put it all the way down here. But I don't like to do that. I like to keep it in the head and just put the word defer here. So in HTML5, we have the ability to defer the script here. So this makes this load at the bottom of the document. So you see the same result. It defers it and it loads it at the end. Okay, that's great. So we have almost completed our objective for this lesson, but the only other thing that we have to do is find another way to get the restaurant name. You can do document.getElementById, that's great, but there's another way to do that, and it's something called query selector. So we can say restaurant name equals document.querySelector, and then we can just give it the selector to select that HTML element. So what do we mean by a query selector? And what is this pound sign doing? Well, when we're dealing with selectors, you have classes and IDs, right? So you can, if you have an ID, that is accessed with the pound sign. But if you have a class, it's accessed with a dot. So let's put something else in there. Let's just put like div class equals description. Save this and then go here. The restaurant name is there, and then we can say restaurant name, and then desk equals document.querySelector.description. Now, I said that you can have one ID in a document, but you can have many different class names, similar class names. So same class name. So you can only have one ID that's called title, but you can have many classes called description. So if you really wanted to, you could do all of that. But for now, we're only going to use one. What query selector does, if you're calling it query selection on a class, it's going to find the first instance of description. So it's going to find the first time it finds a description, and that's the one it's going to grab. So then now what we can do is we can say desk.html equals place to eat. So we've got the query selector to get the title, and then also now query selector to get the description. This one is an ID, and this one is a class. So if we save this and then run this, then we now have that. So we've used document.getElementById to select a DOM element, and we've also used document.querySelector to select DOM element. There are two different ways of doing pretty much the same thing, and we've used DOM manipulation to set the inner HTML of both of these. And when you're doing inner HTML, of course, you can have any HTML inside of here. And you see now this has become italicized, just the word place. But that's essentially it. So if you've done this, then you should be able to complete the assignment that we have, which is to explain, which is really not to explain, really to build this on your own. If you're able to build this on your own already, and it's very simple, you can go on to the next lesson. Otherwise, you should play around with this and do your best to duplicate something that's very similar to this demonstration. Thank you, and we will see you in the next video.